We are at the Data Warehousing and Business Intelligence Summit in Utrecht, Netherlands, where I'm speaking with Mike Ferguson, Managing Director of Intelligent Business Strategies. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Werner.
Your first session today was on data management in a cloud computing environment. What do you think are the top 3 challenges in a cloud computing environment from a data perspective?
Okay, so first of all, it's got to be complexity. We're now dealing with many applications on the cloud as well as on premises, so we're pushing data out to the cloud environment. So that means we're distributing it more. And so therefore, it's much more difficult to integrate data because data is outside the firewall as well as inside it. Also, the data is locked in many cases, in applications where we don't know what the data looks like in the data stores under those applications. So we're very dependent on APIs. And therefore, the APIs are need managed in order to allow applications and processes to remain integrated, and also to allow us to build analytical systems using that kind of data. I think the other main challenge is APIs itself, in the sense that clearly the more applications you're using, the greater the number of interfaces that are emerging. And for many organizations, that's going up. And as a result of that, we are, let's say, open to being impacted by changes in those APIs. And because of that, it can have a domino impact on all of the integration jobs that we create that pull data from those systems or push data to those systems. So I think shielding ourselves from changes in APIs and interfaces is a big challenge on the cloud, particularly also given that Internet of Things is also emerging in that environment, and now we're into millions of interfaces, not something that we perhaps originally anticipated. So I think that's a massive challenge for organizations. And then I think governance of data that's sitting in this hybrid computing environment. We now have to enforce policies around security and protection of data and privacy. We have to handle quality. We have to be able to do it either side of the firewall. We have to make sure that data is commonly understood on both sides of the firewall, because we could have analytical systems as well as operational systems there. So I think that is also a challenge for most organizations. There's no question data virtualization has a huge part to play in integrating data from a mix of on-premises and cloud-based systems, because it has the ability to connect to sources either side of the firewall. And that allows us to quickly bring together data, even though it's not physically held in one data store. So I think data virtualization has an enormous part to play. But I don't think it's the only piece of the puzzle, so to speak. For example, master data management would be another example of a core pillar of data that needs to be synchronized across cloud and on-premises systems. And I don't necessarily see data virtualization as the way to solve the MDM problem. Of course, MDM could be a source to data virtualization, but I don't think it's the total solution to that environment. But I increasingly think, because of the flexibility that data virtualization gives, that has a huge part to play. Also, another very useful example of data virtualization in this environment would be if I'm migrating a data warehouse from on-premises to the cloud. It seems to be a growing trend at the moment. In that case, chances are most organizations are probably going to want to modernize their data warehouse at the same time as they migrate, which probably means in many cases changing the data modeling pattern that they use. I mentioned in my session this afternoon that the Netherlands is a kind of epicenter of data vault, but for many parts of the world they're not. And so if they're moving to the cloud, a lot of them are keen on adopting data vault as a modeling technique, which means changing the design while they migrate. And I think if you're going to use data virtualization between the applications and tools accessing a data warehouse, then changing the design is feasible because you're not going to notice so much because those tools are seeing is the virtual view, not the physical view underneath. And so you can carry out that kind of modernization during migration where it would be much more difficult to do without it.
It makes it less complex.
Yeah, it does. Well, it's also less noticeable from a business user perspective, and so they carry on regardless, and it gives technicians a chance to upgrade and reduce the overall complexity of the design and make it more amenable to accept changes. Catalog software for me is a really rising star at the moment. It's getting a lot of attention. One of the key capabilities of a catalog is automatic data discovery. So the ability to go out there and crawl different data sources, whether they're on premises or in the cloud, whether it's relational databases, cloud storage, Hadoop systems, to automatically understand what's out there, to make an inventory, if you like, of your data landscape, and to automatically profile the data to understand what shape it's in, and to tag it to give it some kind of meaning. I think without doubt that's probably a quick win for a lot of organizations. The second thing would have to be what I would call tag management. You know, it's often the case that different data stores have the same data. And so if you could tag the same data in the same way, so that if you pick up the tags, you now know where it is. This is kind of a key capability that catalogs give you. And so take you a long way towards being able to start governing data, because now you know what it means and also where it is. So that helps you really rapidly move that forward. I think as well, not just that, but you know, kind of collaboration to record decisions on what people are looking at within there. So, for example, if the software automatically catalogs software, you can override those decisions. You can bring in data experts and find data experts in a catalog environment. So I think those are probably three of the major things. I could list at least another 5 or 6, you know, but I think those three in particular would stand out for me.
Okay. And what tips do you have for organizations that are interested in the use of information catalog software? What are the most important selection criteria, for example, or how do you get started?
Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to know is what data sources you have. I mean, where is your data, and you know, what are the core? Is it in Hadoop systems? Is it in cloud storage? Is it in, you know, which clouds is it in? Which applications do you have inside and outside the enterprise? You know, are you using relational databases, Hadoop systems, NoSQL data stores, content management system? Make an inventory of that, because that's important. If you're expecting a catalog to discover your data, you want to make sure that when you buy it, that it's capable of connecting to all the sources that you have. So I think if you do that, that would be very important. I think as well, one of the other things that would be very important to me is the inclusion of a business glossary in the catalog, so that you can document common data names and definitions, so that, and then map what you find in your different data sources to that, so that you can then understand a common meaning associated with data in multiple places. And then I guess that allows me to see across that complex landscape. I think as well, making sure that anyone who's going to access that data in those different data stores has a way from the tools they're using. They could be data science tools, they could be BI tools. Are there any plugins from the catalog to the tool, so the user doesn't have to leave the tool to find out what's available by searching the catalog, you know, so that they could, you know, seamlessly do that from within the tooling that they're using. I think that would be another one. And then probably the last one that would really stand out for me would be policy management. I mean, governance is very important going forward, and we know that because of regulations like GDPR, but clearly I want to define my policies once and enforce them everywhere. I don't want to have to keep going into one technology, then another, then another, then another, and keep redefining the same policy, because that raises the chances of that I'm going to do it wrongly somewhere or inconsistently somewhere. So for me, if we could define it once and attach it to data in the catalog, and then from there we can push down and enforce it into multiple places. So I think those three, and then the only last thing I would leave you with is I wouldn't buy a catalog software at all if it can't do automatic discovery of change. That is, this is constantly changing. New data's arriving, and data's being deleted and whatnot. We have to have the ability to automatically detect change. If you can't do that, I wouldn't even buy the product.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike.
Okay, thank you.